Hey everybody, and welcome back. This time we are talking about buttons. Lots of different button options, and I'm going to run you through some of the most popular and show you how they are made. So let's start with this background here. Now you can create buttons like this here, where you just draw out a rectangle. Let's hit R on my keyboard, draw something out, and change the color. These are pretty easy to create. I can hit T for text on my keyboard, and let's say sign in with Facebook. Choose a font that kind of matches up. I've got Avenir Next selected, and let's try kind of a regular. Let's drop the font size down just a little bit. You can do a little bit better job matching that up and maybe increase the character spacing. Mine is dropped down just a little bit. But you get the idea. Then you can grab the little Facebook logo, pop that in there. Those are pretty easy to create. You can also add a little bit more complexity to this and add a little bit of a radius. So maybe round those corners a bit up to like a 5. Gives it a nice little view. Let's get rid of that. Let's do a different kind of button here. I'm going to hide these login buttons. And let's do one that's based on just kind of a border. So let's draw out a rectangle again. And we'll just call this one a login button. So we start with a square here. And I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can see it. I'm going to hit Command D on my keyboard to duplicate that. So in my layers panel, I have my original rectangle and I've got my rectangle copy. The rectangle copy is sitting on top of the other one. I'm going to change the color of this to a reddish so I can see what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to resize this. I'm going to choose Alt-Shift, drag this in just a little bit, and all I really want to display is the border. And that might be just a little bit too much. Let's zoom in just a bit more. And what I want, something kind of like that. And I want it to be even on all sides. So with this shape selected, I'm going to hold down Alt and see what we got here. So I've got 3 on the top and bottom, 3 pixels of space, and I've got 5 pixels of space on the left and right. So I'm going to bump this over 2 pixels, and then I'm going to grow this one by, let's say, 4. So on my width, I'll come up here and I'll say +4, enter. So now I should have 3 pixels of space, a little buffer, evenly around each side. So when I hold down Alt, I've got 3 on each side. So I've got this selected. I'm going to hold down Shift and choose the shape down below. If you look over here in the layers panel, you'll see that I have both rectangles selected. I'm now going to go up to the top and click Subtract. And now I'm left with this border. Let's change the color of our border to a white. So it's a very cool effect. You've got this transparent kind of border here. And if we want to put it somewhere where maybe right in the middle, I'm going to add some text, and we'll say login. You can change that to like a bold, and then increase the size a bit. So there's one option for a button. And if you want to get a little bit more artsy with it, you can grab that border, maybe drop down the opacity a bit so it's a little bit see-through. You can do the same thing with text here. Drop that down. So that gives it kind of a cool effect. So there's our first option. Let's go ahead and hide this background and move on to our next one. Next I'm going to go into a different kind of button here. Let's draw out another rectangle. This one's going to be more of a pill-shaped button. So let's get this centered here. I'll come up to radius and I'm just going to drag it all the way across so I can't drag it anymore. And now it's got this kind of pill shape. So it's rounded on both sides. With this, I'm going to go to my fills, select a gradient, and let's go with maybe an orange. And then this one, I'll just drag up to the top here. T for text. We've got login again. Drag that to the side. And if we want to make this just a little bit better, let's take login, add a drop shadow to it. You can see it just a little bit better now. You could do the same thing to your button shape here. Add a drop shadow, and that gives it a little bit more of a standout vibe here. So that's another button for you. Let's get rid of this. Let's hide our forest. And now we've got this guy here. And actually I probably should have kept that button. Let's draw another one out. This time we're going to do kind of a glowing effect. So let's get the same kind of button here. I'll draw out a rectangle. I'm going to apply a radius. And this time, let's see, what kind of color do we want to choose here? Let's do a gradient again. I'm going to go with the purple color. Let's drag this to the center. Let's change these reference points. And I want to change this color, so I don't want it that bluish. I'm going to grab my purple here. I'm going to get hex code value right here and copy that. So Command C. I'm going to choose my bottom reference point. I'm going to paste that in. Hit enter. But now I'm going to darken it up a little bit. So I'll grab this little color circle and just drag it slowly over to the darker area here. And I think I like that right there. So now with my button selected, I'm going to come down to shadows. And what I want now is kind of a glowing effect. So I applied a shadow. Let's bump this up to a 2. Hit enter. Right now I've got kind of a dark shadow here. But let's choose something else. Maybe a brighter purple. And then let's bring the alpha up just a little bit. We can come back to our shadow and then increase the blur a bit and also the spread. So now I've got this glowing button here. I can increase the blur just a little bit more and it gives it more of a glowing effect. This might be better actually down here at the bottom. It's still got that glowing effect, which is kind of cool. Let's add some text here. Log in. Drag that to the middle and we can add another drop shadow of that, give it a little more definition. So there's another option. You've got kind of a glowing effect to match what's going on with these neon lights here. You can play around with the spread and the blur on that. Let's get rid of this guy. Let's move on to our next background. Let's get rid of Miami. Now we've got Miles here. I'm going to draw out another rectangle. And let's stick with kind of the same theme. Let's go radius again. Pill shape. The pill shape buttons are pretty popular. See them a lot in apps. And this time we're going to apply a gradient, but let's do a red one. This time I want to give it kind of a sunken in feeling. And I want to take this, let's drag it up to the top here. So you can see it just a little bit better. And instead of applying a shadow this time, let's do an inner shadow. So now you see just ever so slightly this little sunken in kind of feeling here. So the shadow is on the inside of the button now. If we want to increase that, let's change the X here to a 2. Let's change the Y to a 2 as well. And now we've got just a little bit more of a shadow here, which gives it that sunken in feeling. Might be a little bit harder to see down here, but you can still see that. But very cool effect. That's one more option for buttons. And let's keep this button. Let's get rid of our background. And now we're at Godzilla. We can put this guy right here. And I think this time, let's apply, which gradient do we want now? I think maybe this guy. No, I'm going to go with the green. I've got the green. I'm going to take away my inner shadow. This time I'm going to do something a little bit different. Actually, I do want the inner shadow, but instead of a dark color here, what I'm going to do is, and let's play around with the colors of the gradient actually. So I'll start with something light. Let's get the color picker and let's grab some coloring from Godzilla here. Let's get that light color. Let's choose our bottom reference point. Get our color picker again. Let's choose something a little bit darker, maybe like that. And we can darken it up just a little bit more by dragging this down. Okay, so now instead of this sunken in feeling with the dark shadow, let's click in here and let's get our color picker and let's go back to this bright color here. Maybe that white. That's pretty good. I like that. And I'm going to drop the blur down to about a 0. And I'm going to change my Y value. So let's go to a negative. I'm going to go to a -2 and give it kind of a drop shadow on the left here. You could also do this with a shadow and then remove the blur, but this is just one more way to kind of play around with it. So there you go, yet another login button option. One additional option would be to create kind of a split design here. Let's make this just a little bit larger. I'm going to hit Command D to duplicate this. Let's draw out another rectangle and get it right in the middle here. With that selected, let's drag that rectangle above our other buttons here. And I'm going to select one of our buttons. So I've got my main rectangle selected. I've got one of the button copies selected. And this time I'm going to choose intersect at the top here. It's my Boolean operation. So the only part I'm going to be left with are the parts that are touching. So now if I click off of it, you see this little line here in the middle. Let's take off that inner shadow. Let's go to this button, take off the inner shadow as well. So now you've got two button halves, and you can split these up into something different. And I'm just going to do something really basic here. So with this top reference point selected, let's select kind of this grayish here. Let's select this other reference point and just choose something a little darker. So now I've got something that looks more like a pill would look, and I can have two separate functionalities in one button. Alright, that's pretty much it for buttons this go around. I wanted to run you guys through some of the basic ones, and those are it. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.